Hello and welcome to a special episode of the Bite Size Podcast with Noah Davison.
That's me.
We work together at Matt Anthony's in Angola, and we have spoken a lot since I started working there. And I thought that this would be an interesting conversation to have as part of the podcast, because I know that you have a lot of opinions on different topics and
Yeah, definitely.
a lot of things to talk about, I'm sure. So, yeah, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, no problem. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what we got to talk about and just, talk.
So the first thing I wanted to ask is something that you had mentioned yesterday from another podcast about the train. So I'm not sure who the best person to use in your situation is, your mom or your girlfriend or whatever, but if there was a train coming at someone you love and you had to choose between saving 1,000 people on the train or saving that one person the train was coming at, what do you think you would do, or what would be running through your mind to make that decision?
Yeah. So what you're referencing is actually one of your episodes that I was watching, and that's a really interesting question. And something that it reminded me of was about a year ago, I took this test online, and it was it was for smart cars actually, and what it was doing was it was these situations, and it was like if you were in a smart car and it was driving itself, and you were in this situation, what should the smart car do? So it's like you can either crash and kill yourself, or you can hit a woman and three dogs. You can hit four people, or you can crash and kill. Yeah, and you had to decide between the people you would kill. Well, you had to decide for the car. And that was really interesting because the research was actually documented and is put into like what people think as a total, because those are decisions, unfortunately, that someday the car might have to make.
Well, there's actually been one death by a self-driving car where it actually ended up hitting the person instead of saving,
Right.
or it saved the person who was driving the car.
Right, and I think that's kind of how I came to it, was it should always, first and foremost, protect the person in the car. That only makes sense, I think. But then it should just try to minimize damage after that, is sort of how I went with it. But anyway, back to the question. I think regardless of who the person is, I would have to hit the person, the one person. Um, Even if it's my mom or my girlfriend, I'm killing 10,000 moms and girlfriends,
Yeah,
or 1,000 moms and girlfriends, if not, so.
Yeah, I feel like you'd have a bit of survivor's guilt after that, no matter what
Oh,
happens.
for sure.
It would weigh down on you and the person who you saved.
Yeah, the person
For the rest of their
more,
lives.
definitely,
Yeah.
yeah, because you're the one that's putting value on their life, they never asked for that. I think it's a big weight to carry.
For sure.
But yeah.
Okay, well, if that wasn't deep enough.
For sure.
My next question is about kind of like the state of the education system in America today.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that we're on a good track right now as far as preparing people for the real world through elementary, through high school, and maybe even college if you want to delve into that? Or do you think that, there's always going to be ways that we can improve things, and
Definitely.
but as a whole, do you think that we're kind of on the right track, or do you think it's going down from where it used to be? Or
Okay. So, yeah, that's an interesting question. I guess we'll just start at the beginning, right? Preschool, stuff like that. I think it's really hard to be bad at preschool. First of all, I think you're teaching.
Unless you got insomnia and you can't take a nap.
you're teaching motor skills. You're teaching socialization. You're teaching basic principles to help you just adapt to the social situations. I think preschool does really well. I personally went to preschool where we live, and I have a few memories of it, and I can understand the goal of preschool, and personally for me and my siblings and other people I know, I think the people that went to preschool really had a head start to those who didn't. even if they went to daycare or something like that, which I also did. But mm, going into elementary school, uh, I think it depends where you live. Um, if you go up to Canada, California, they have these really weird policies that they're doing now. Very marshmallow soft policies, which we might get into later. But I think the problem with our low level education systems is that you're not preparing children for, like you said, the real world. We're not.
Right.
We're softening things up, telling everyone to be nice, and unfortunately, it's my belief at least that, people aren't always great. People aren't always soft. People don't always want to make you happy.
And that brings up a fair point that we were also talking about a week or two ago. You kind of said that there's advantages to being bullied, and that it's not always a bad thing, because it can kind of shape you into the person that you need to become. So I kind of get what you're saying on that. If everyone's told to be nice and to an extent they listen, then it creates an environment where people aren't able to grow fully, and they become desensitized to how things are in the real world when you're not being told to be nice every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And a great book that I recommend to everybody, Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules to Life. He asks a really good question in his chapter about raising children, and he's like, would you rather raise a child who's safe or a child who's strong? Because a child who's safe will be able to prosper in their ecosystem, but a child who's strong adapts to the ecosystem. Exactly, yeah. I think it's much more important to prepare the child for what life will really be like, rather than create an environment that will help these children as long as they stay here.
It's kind of like give a man a meal he eats for a day, teach a man to fish, and he'll be able to eat forever.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it's a short-term solution. In the classroom they'll be nice to everybody, but once they go on, you just ruin their lives.
Right.
And it brings up another huge thing, which is kind of tangential, but the rate of PTSD for people like that. Generally, when you're raised like that, you have high trait agreeableness, which, in short, is like how compassionate you are, and how willing you are to listen to authority. And if you're high trait agreeableness, what we know from data is that when you're put in stressful situations or high stress situations, there's a much higher likelihood that you're gonna acquire PTSD and other mental disorders, because you're just not prepared in life for these stresses and these things, and they shock you so much that your mind doesn't know how to cope. And that's also where a lot of DID will come from, your dissociative identity disorder, your multiple personalities, and so that's where I stand with elementary, I guess.
Just like trying to find a way to cope so you can create.
Elementary, I think there's not much I can say about the education itself, but the attitude around it, the social attitude around it, I think is shifting. And I think it's shifting away from science. I think it's shifting away from factual knowledge. I think it's just trying to be nice. And I'd say that's our problem with our elementary system. I don't know.
Yeah, I could agree with that. Makes sense.
Going on though, middle school. God, middle school is
Kinda all
such an interesting
changes.
time. Yeah, for sure. And I've thought about this a little bit. I think sixth grade is really interesting, because it's like, I guess it's different for a lot of schools, even in America, but across countries it might be vastly different. But sixth grade, for where I came from, was when you move from elementary, all the elementaries combined to one middle school, and for a lot of people it's like that.
That's how it was for me too.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of my cousins, when I lived out in Arizona, sixth grade was part of elementary school, and then middle was just seventh and eighth.
Yeah.
Do you think there's advantages to that, or do you think that sixth grade should be part of the middle school bracket, if you will?
Personally, I think it was advantageous for us. I had a really interesting middle school class. I had a really interesting class throughout, but well, I guess it depends on what way you look at it. We were able to be socialized with each other very early on, before we hit 13, which, for some reason, at least in males, we see a huge spike in aggressiveness, and in females we see a huge spike in depression. That hasn't been fully documented yet into why that is, or how that is. But what happened for us was in sixth grade we were all able to be socialized. You know, you kind of figure out your social groups. It's really stressful in a really not serious way.
But at the time, it seems like the biggest thing in your life.
Thing ever, yeah, absolutely. And I kind of got in with, like, you know, the cool kids or whatever, which was fine. I never really cared to hang out too much. I didn't hang out too much with them. But moving on to seventh grade, things got really interesting. You get a lot of depression. You get a lot of anxiety. And it always seems to be that 13, 14, 12, where this happens. Ours happened to be seventh grade, and our females, it was epidemic in our class. They were cutting themselves, viciously all the time. I mean, it must have been at least 1/3 of the class, and that's not exaggeration. You know, cutting themselves. And it became really hard to decipher, you know, why they're doing this. Attention, they're actually depressed. Their friend did it. Like, I remember talking to an old friend of mine, and at the time we were best friends, and you know, she had never cut herself. I never cut myself. Disclaimer. But some guys did. Some guys did.
Me neither.
Mostly girls. But she had never cut herself. She was happy with her life. Nothing had ever happened. But one day she came to school and just gashes on her arm.
Wow.
And I asked her why she did it, and she didn't have an answer. And that was really weird. That, for our class, I don't know if it changed us. I don't know what it was. I don't know what about middle school did that to us. And I don't know if it's indicative of a problem with the education system itself, but like for those teachers to have to teach and push through that type of behavior from their students, I feel like it's hard to ask much more of them, honestly, because you see the same thing year in, year out. I don't think you see it on our scale. I think every class kind of has their little niche that they're
involved in that?
Yeah, their vice. Every class has a vice. The class after us was really sexually active. The class after that was really, a lot of them smoked, a lot of them drank, you know, stuff like that. And I think, you know, we're all just trying to line up the 7 deadly sins and our class motto.
This year's class is all fat people, so.
Yeah, but yeah, the middle school education system I felt was fine. Problems maybe being the arts. You don't feel a lot of the arts in middle school, at least where I come from. So once you get to high school, it's like the sports are overflowing and the arts are struggling, you know, drowning.
Definitely, yeah. I can agree with that. The arts programs were definitely like 10 times more extreme once I got to high school. High school than they were in middle school. It was kind of just like you get a taste of things, and then if you're serious about it, then you can really experience it in high school. And to go back to your last topic, in my school or in my class at least, there was only about maybe 10, 15 people who were really, they were like the emo clique, and they would cut themselves and all that.
Right.
And for a while, I was really associated with all them. Not that I really did that, but I started dating this new girl who...
what year was this?
This was my 8th grade year, I think.
Okay.
Maybe 7th grade. I can't remember for sure, but a new girl started, and we started talking and ended up dating, and then I figured out that she had some severe depression, and she had a friend recently commit suicide, and so she was still struggling to process all that and get through it, and to a degree she still is today, and so she would cut, and through her I got associated with all these other people who were in that group because they kind of stuck together, they could relate, and it's interesting that you said that there's different reasons why they do stuff like that, because the girl that I had dated was definitely doing it because she was depressed, and she had these mental issues, and there was other people in that group who just wanted to fit into that group. They needed somewhere to click with. So to do that, they would literally cut themselves just so that people in that group would accept them and let them be a part of that to make friends, which is a crazy way to make friends for sure. And then other people still just did it for no reason, like you said, and it was very strange to see the eclectic mix of people that were there, and some of them were people that in elementary school I really thought were like gonna be the people that became president or something. You'd never expect it sometimes, but people change so drastically.
Some people in my 7th grade class, they graduate now, and you have top athletes that were doing it. You have some of the smartest people in the class that were doing it. You look back and you're like, wow, like, well, what a strange time of our lives. People just thought everything was so stressful, and we weren't even prepared for taking the SAT. We did that. We didn't cut themselves, but
it's crazy how big problems seem when you haven't experienced
absolutely
truly big problems.
Truly big problems, right? Like, even then, like...
And it makes you wonder, when you do experience a truly big problem, is something else going to happen next year or whatever that makes you put that other thing in perspective that seemed like the craziest thing? Incapable?
And for me, it was really weird, because I had gone through a lot already. When I was younger, my brother, he was born when I was in 3rd grade, and he died when he was 2.5, so I lived this really, really crazy life for 2.5 years, and so I kind of got this perspective on life that was very different than other 5th graders, I should say, at the very least, you know.
Sure.
So going through, like, school with that, and then going into 6th and 7th and 8th grade, I kind of, like, took a step back and watched it all happen, and I learned a lot from the people that were there, and I was able to kind of decipher the human mind. And unfortunately what happened was that, like, I took such a large step back, in my opinion, that I kind of lost my friends, started hanging out with nobody.
Would you say that hanging out with less people and losing your friends more or less would help you find yourself, though?
Yeah.
I feel like when you're hanging out with people, you tend to pick up traits from them, and even if you're really close friends, you still have to fight for acceptance sometimes. At least in your head. And so I think sometimes if you can take that step back and disassociate with a lot of people, while that's not necessarily the easiest or best thing in the moment, I think it can really do wonders for finding out who you truly are.
Exactly. And I think it's very important to have mentors to get you through stuff like that. And in middle school, I had a great teacher, Mrs. Griffiths, and she mentored me sort of emotionally. She's very sensory, very emotional, very spiritual. She mentored me through those years of my life very, very well, I feel. Knew a lot about me. I knew a lot about her. And we had a very, very close relationship. Going into high school.
What did she teach?
She taught English. My 6th grade year.
For 6th grade.
We had a thing called homeroom. 6th grade year, I was in her homeroom. We spent like 30 minutes a day in there or something. And we had a very, very close homeroom. Well, go 7th grade, we lost some teachers. Teachers switched grades. Miss Griffiths goes down to 7th grade. And it was a really weird setup in our school. We had 2 teams, blue team and yellow team. Those were our school colors.
We had that too.
Yeah. And kids were either on the blue team or the yellow team. There was never really any direct competition. Hogwarts or anything,
Right.
but regardless, it determined what teachers you had. There were two sets of teachers for each subject, and you had either the blue teacher or the yellow teacher. Well, I was on the teacher without Miss Griffiths. I was on the yellow team.
Was it randomly selected, these teams?
Yeah. As far as I know,
We had they called it like Royals and Ventures, and I was a Royal, but everybody in the Royals team thought that the Ventures were like the smart people. Like they hand selected the smartest kids to go to the Venture team, and from what I heard, apparently a lot of the Venture people thought that the Royals were like the smart people. So
that's funny.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how that
Okay, yeah, interesting question. Because I learned a lot through Miss Griffiths. Because what happened was she switched my team, so I would be on her side, and I was in her homeroom again. Or no, I was in Mr. Miller's homeroom, who coincidentally in 6th grade became my neighbor.
Wow.
So I was in his homeroom. Yeah, so that was interesting. Also, my cross country coach, really great friend of mine for a while, but. Anyhow, back to what you were saying about handpicking teams. They won't handpick teams based on talent. They actually do it the exact opposite way. They'll take the worst kids in the class, the biggest troublemakers, and they'll split them up intentionally. That's the only handpicking that I ever saw was like,
Well, that makes sense.
it's like, we'll take this bad kid if you take that bad kid.
Yeah.
And it's like they're trying to determine who gets what kid that they don't want at all. Yeah, it's really
It's like
funny.
the draft.
Yeah, the
for
reverse
who you
draft.
don't want to work with. Yeah.
Exactly. They're trying to pick the best, worst kid. Yeah. And then stuff like that. Yeah, that's the only time they handpick. Other than that, it felt pretty even. No, there's never really animosity, except for like, I think people thought that the blue team teachers were better, so they felt kind of like gypped in that sense. But I respected all the teachers. I had some of the teachers a year prior. A great running mentor of mine, Paul Beckwith. He was in 7th grade. I didn't get to have him any years of my education career, and he is a phenomenal teacher, a phenomenal person. I mean, this man is someone worth talking to for anybody. But Paul Beckwith, yeah, there are others like Kenzie. Names mean nothing, obviously, but just things that are like, it was pretty even. I think it's just people want what they don't have.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Then come 8th grade, kind of just going through my education, but 8th grade was really interesting. And I should say that I was never a very studious student. I never really did my work. I did it if like I thought it was worth doing, which carried up to my senior year. If I felt
I
like
can relate.
If I felt like it was worth doing, I would do it. If I didn't, I didn't. And unfortunately, there was only one class of advanced kids. My 8th grade year for reading. For math, there was more. But for reading, you were either in this 32-person class or whatever, or you weren't. And that was the advanced kids. And I had no hope of getting it. I had like B's and C's as a 7th.
So it was based on grades?
No, I'll get to that. So, like, I had this teacher my 7th grade year named Mrs. Aldrich, and she was the theater director at the high school at the time, and a really lovely lady. But people, for some reason, hated her. That was really weird. I absolutely adored her. I had a great time in her class. She loved me. I was in theater, kind of. There was an 8th grade play that they did my 7th grade year, and the lead role, one of the lead roles, 2 weeks before dropped out.
Oh, wow.
He had a surprise family vacation or something. So the director at the middle school actually came to me and were like I'd never done a play before or anything. He was like, please do this. He was like I know your personality. Like I know you can take this on, and I'd be really excited for you to help us out or whatever. And I was like, okay.
Was it something legitimate? Do you remember what it was?
And it wasn't legit at all. It was like it was a play about the backstage of a play. I wish I could remember the name of it. But yeah, it's like what goes on behind the scenes or whatever. So it was really, really interesting. So like the set is like
Backwards.
so like when you look through the curtain on the set, it's like the audience is all the way on backstage, and then on the forefront of the stage or whatever, you have the backstage of a set. Really, really interesting. The concept was fantastic. It was a really funny play. We did 3 performances of it. One for like parents, one for 6th and 7th grade, and one for 8th grade. In that order. So we did our parent show. It's fantastic. 6th and 7th grade show, even better. 8th grade show, it was our director's last show of his life. So we were like, we're just gonna mess things up. Like for fun. Like we're just gonna go crazy, right? It was like, I could never forget this, and you can't make this stuff up. At the start, you do like exercise or whatever before your performance. Well, that was a part of our show, was like we do exercises in a circle on stage or whatever, and we're doing it. And this girl named Vidya Sharma is like exercising. She's like leading it, I think, and she kicks her shoe, and her shoe flies off.
Oh my gosh!
It hits like the ceiling or whatever, goes down, and like we have to keep it together. Like this is what we planned or whatever. Later in the show,
did he know?
No, we didn't tell him that we were going to do this. He absolutely loved it, by the way. He was not angry at all. And then like there were times that like we would pretend to forget a line, and then Vidi would pop out and be like wah wah wah, just like randomly. And there's this big tree on the set too. I don't even think this was intentional, just coincidental. But we knocked it down, and it completely fell over, and it was a big heavy tree like in this pot, and yeah, it was a blast. We also like set this whole paper on fire, like it caught fire, and
wow.
It was crazy. Yeah, but going back to how this connects, that was a fantastic time. Miss Aldrich would let me memorize lines during her class, so she'd be like, "Yeah, no, you can go and just memorize lines." So I would like memorize lines during class. She really liked me. Well, what I found out when I went to 8th grade was that she pushed hard for me to be in the advanced class. So I got in the advanced class.
Oh, well.
Should not have gotten there, but she absolutely loved me. Her, Miss Griffiths, there might have been 1 or 2 other teachers that absolutely adored me and kind of like slid me in there. Like they're like, I guess we'll have a 30-second person.
Just pull some strings here.
Mm-hmm. Which I had never asked for or anything. I didn't expect to be in that class, honestly.
But I'm sure it benefited you, though.
Yeah, not necessarily that I didn't deserve it or that I wasn't capable of doing it, but because I hadn't put in the effort that I probably should have to be there, which is important, I think. But
yeah, I mean that leads to something else I had told you before. How I took an AP literature class my sophomore year, I think, and there was supposed to be a 30-page packet you were supposed to do in the summer beforehand, and I ended up not doing that and went to my principal, and he basically said they can't force you to do summer homework.
Right.
And allowed me to stay in that class anyway. And after about a week, the teacher pulled me aside and essentially said that I sucked at it and didn't deserve to be in the class and I should quit. So I did.
Right.
I think it makes a big difference to have teachers in your corner, even if you feel like you may not necessarily deserve it. If they're pulling for you to succeed, then that's very conducive to a good learning environment. And
yeah, no, definitely. And when I went to 8th grade, attitude was very different towards kids, definitely in 8th grade than it was 7th grade. 7th grade, first of all, the cutting had ended, so we didn't need to be babied as much anymore.
Right.
But also, the teachers seemed a lot less connected. Other than one, we had a teacher named Miss Go. Beautiful, beautiful woman too. And it was her first year there, and kind of like ruined her in a way. We had advanced English and advanced reading together. That class, we like went throughout the day with each other, like just advanced kids all day. It was weird.
Wow.
Weird and cultish, honestly. Like, we became friends with, like, just each other, because we're all we see, you know, other than
Right.
at lunch.
Yeah.
I mean, lunch and then 2 classes in the day were, like, our shop class, like, our art class, or, you know, we switched that stuff, but...
In that way, I mean, schools in general are kind of cultish. It's like you just
Definitely.
lasso in a bunch of kids and then force them to socialize with each other and stuff. And
It's inevitable. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. But 8th grade, I remember the teachers just absolutely hating me. I don't really remember why, honestly. Like, I just felt like they had a lot of animosity towards me. One day, my locker was broken my 8th grade year, so I could just lift it up. I never had to. I didn't do it myself. It was just always like that. I wasn't mad. I wasn't gonna tell anybody. I just
right.
opened my locker. I never put anything sacred in there anyway. I always kept my phone on me, even though I wasn't supposed to, and stuff like that. One day, after school, I'm just getting in my locker. I open it up, open the door, and like I'm getting my stuff, and my reading teacher comes around, and she's like, "Close your locker." Okay. Open your locker. Okay. And like she's like freaks out on me for like rigging my locker, and I'm like, it's not rigged. Like look at my locker. Cause have you ever rigged a locker? You put something.
Yeah, you can like put something in the hole so that it.
Yeah, no, it wasn't like that. I was like, I didn't rig my locker. It's been like that for forever. She's just like screaming at me, and like all the other teachers are just watching her, and I was just like, whoa, I never did anything. Like, what's going on? And this teacher was very emotionally unstable. There were days in class.
Sounds like it.
But yeah, she freaked out on me, and I remember just going to Miss Griffiths and following and being like, why are they like this? You know,
Right.
I didn't do anything. I don't feel like I've done anything, like to slight them or like to discredit their teaching or anything. High school definitely deserved more of that. There.
Discredited all their teachers.
But yeah, middle school was interesting. As far as education, I guess where I was getting at with that is, I think they're fine. The way we did it was fine. But navigating the social vessels of middle school is definitely the most challenging thing that you'll do up to that point in your life. Like I said, for me,
sure.
I had things earlier in my life that made it easier for me to kind of like step back and extrapolate what was going on and figure things out at the expense of loneliness, which fortunately I was able to handle myself. And a lot of it I got through video games, I think, helped me. So I spent a lot of my time on. But
Quick aside, what games did you play?
what games did I play? So when I was younger, I was into the Call of Duties. I ended up getting really, really, really good. Up to, I don't know if you ever played ranked in Call of Duty or anything, but
A few times.
up to Master Tier.
Okay.
I had a lot of older friends on there. They're like, God, this kid's so good. You know, 7th grade kid, Master Tier. It was pretty cool. Back in Black Ops 2 days when, what was after Black Ops 2? It was Advanced Warfare. I don't think anybody if I'm correct, it was Advanced Warfare. It was one of those. Black Ops 2, you know, lost a big part of their population to Advanced Warfare, but a lot of people stayed. I stayed. Played Black Ops 2.
And it was like Black Ops better?
Ranked got really, really tough. But what happens is when you get in a lobby, you can hear the other people, but you can't see the other people's names for familiarity reasons. And I would rank up with a couple of my online friends or whatever. We would get in the lobby, we would be waiting for other people, and there's this trick that you could do to back out of the lobby, because generally it doesn't let you. Once it shows names, you're not allowed to back out of the lobby. But if you put in your, like, you know how you could have, like, a clan tag?
Oh, yeah?
If you put in COD, C-O-D, because that's, like, a restricted clan tag for people who are in the Call of Duty, like, Activision group, it would kick you out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but, like, what would happen is, like, me and my friends, it would take us forever to get games because people know us so well that those back out, they hear our voices. So we had to, like, be quiet. And then,
until it started?
Yeah, and then once the names were revealed, people would still COD back out. And it was like, come on, dude. Like, because then you see everyone's rank and stuff, and you see like
then they get scared.
Yeah. So then they're like, oh, I don't want my rank to drop, and Yeah, there's a lot of politics in it. It was a lot of fun though. I had a blast. But then eighth grade year, end of eighth grade year, I get into League of Legends. You ever heard of that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Definitely.
got into League, uh, which consumed my life for years, years. Up until I was a junior. I think I stopped when I was a junior. Probably spent $400 or $500 on the game. Free to play game. Spent $500.
I know people have spent a lot more than that though. So.
Yeah, for sure. Like I was no exception to the normal League player.
Yeah.
But I loved League. League taught me a lot of strategy. League taught me a lot decision making. I think there's a lot of good things that you can take from it, and also just a great community. League is a really, really good community, I feel. Obviously, you have your toxic people everywhere, but
Yeah.
all in all, League is a really devoted, happy, go lucky community.
Oh, for sure. It seems like a very small minority of the League of Legends people cut themselves.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, I would say. Yeah, I'm just upset that League isn't as big in America as it is in the Asian countries, because on the West Coast it's pretty big, but East Coast,
it's pretty big in the like professional gaming sector.
oh, it's huge. The
Yeah,
biggest. Fortnite coming up now is a good competitor, but I don't think it'll
If
ever.
it can stay. I don't think it has the lasting power.
It doesn't. No, there's just not enough.
Especially with everyone diluting the battle royale market.
Yeah.
There's another one coming out like every day.
Yeah, agreed. But yeah, those are the games I played. And then when I stopped playing League, I stopped playing video games. Just because it's too much of my time. Decided to do other things like chess and other things like that. Yeah. So I guess we're on high school.
Yeah,
High school. What an interesting time of our lives.
for sure. Everything kind of changes drastically again.
Yeah.
You think you have a handle on everything, and then,
And then high
you
school.
go back to the bottom of the ladder.
Yeah, my high school career, weird. There's this great teacher named Mr. Birkenbiel. Burke is what everyone called him, and still calls him even outside of schools. You call him Burke. Very weird to call him that or any other name. But yeah, Burke and Burke was really good friends with my brother. Great, I wouldn't say mentor to my brother. Zach doesn't really learn a lot. Yeah, also Zach. My brother's name is Zach. But Bert kind of took me under his wing early on, and you have an academic lab or whatever, you can aid for a teacher. Well, I aided for Bert my freshman year in one of his AP Lit classes, and God, those kids hated me. And for decent reason. I was a freshman who thought I knew more than I did. I did know a lot, and intuitively I was very, very strong, but at the same time, like, if anybody was actually intelligent, that class could tore me apart. I just didn't have the knowledge base that I accumulated throughout high school. But I would give my input in the class, and they would all be like, "Shut up, stupid freshman," whatever.
Yeah, that's one thing about high school that always kind of frustrated me. People kind of discredit you because you're younger and lower on the ladder, which I do agree that as you go through high school, you learn stuff, whether it's life experience stuff or actual like
you change a
book
lot.
smarts.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of maturing and a lot of growth that happens.
On your own time though. Like if you're not looking to grow, I don't think you do. I think there are kids in my freshman class that graduated the exact same person as a senior.
Yeah, there's some people who are mid-20s now and are probably the same person they were when they were in high school. So
and what's interesting is that's kind of been like theorized before by Piaget, a French psychologist. He kind of said something like that. He was like, I think I talked to you about it one time. He was like, by the time like you're 8 years old, most people are done maturing, and like they have so hard they have such a hard time overcoming that monkey see, monkey do mentality. That's all they do for the rest of their lives, and that's the main chunk of our population. And it's like you see things like
All
that.
a bunch of 8-year-olds.
Yeah, a bunch of old 8-year-olds. Like they never learn to adapt. They never learn to apply. And it's like that. Those section of 11-year-olds that they.
Right. Yeah.
At best, you're 11. But yeah, I mean, I'll take it. But yeah, it's really fun to see where you came from. You know, especially for me, I feel I was so different. I believed in a lot of things when I was younger. Speaking in my 8th grade year, to be true politically, and I've always had an opinion, I should say.
Yeah.
And it's fun to see how like my opinions have changed through what I've read, what I've done, what I've seen. That's really interesting for me. But high school education, I think, is decently strong. Problems with it are like teachers aren't selected well enough. I don't think. I think it's hard to select teachers better. I think
I
college.
think it's hard to find teachers too, though.
Yeah.
There's a lot of classes that they got to fill in, so
Yeah.
they're willing to be less picky because they just need somebody to teach this curriculum.
I think.
Or have 60 people in a class, which isn't very effective either.
Mhm. One of my high school teachers, Troy Smith, and probably the biggest mentor in my life, he had this idea, I kind of tossed it around in my head, teachers should have to have a master's in what they teach, which sounds great. Now you're getting to teachers that actually know their material better.
Right.
It's getting them out of the teaching, the degree for teaching.
Teaching degree, yeah.
Which I'm heavily against. I think you should go through what you want to teach and,
Right, I
and
mean, in
learn about it
college-
and then learn how to teach it.
Yeah, like you don't have to have a teaching degree to teach college. You just have to have experience in what you're teaching.
Exactly, right. Like I think that's much more effective than
Right.
than being like, this is how you teach a kid to do math. Like, and to some extent, I understand the impact of that for low-level education, but for higher-level education, I think it's toxic.
For sure, yeah.
To get a degree like that. So yeah, that's probably the biggest problem with education is like this. The teachers are just not at the level that they should be. There are some are and are severely underpaid. There are some that aren't and I think are overpaid, honestly,
Right.
for what they do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm about to start school again for audio production, like recording studio type stuff, and especially in that field, but I definitely think that it applies to basically every teacher. It's much more effective to have a teacher that's been doing it and knows what they're doing, because you can read as many books as you want about producing music, but if you haven't physically done it, if you don't know the little tips and tricks that make it actually sound good at the end of the
Right.
day, then you're not going to be able to show somebody how to do that as well. And there's things that you learn from doing that teaching or learning will not really be able to teach you.
I agree completely. Yeah. Other than that, but the only other thing that I could see doing to the high school system to make it better is completely restructure it, which is like sounds drastic, but
Effective.
But yeah, my junior year we had a class full of French exchange students come here, our pen pals, full
Okay.
class.
Wow.
Yeah, which was like it was a week long. They were here and was one of the coolest experiences that I've ever had. Meeting people from another country, completely different worldview, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But they went to a high school that was a specialized high school in like business and industrial management. So like that was what they all did at this. I think it was private. I don't know if it's called private there, but I think it was kind of like our equivalent to a private school in a way.
Okay.
But they're all specialized in this, in this type of learning for business and management. So obviously they're all taking econ classes, math classes, stuff like that, physics classes, engineering, stuff like that. And that's what they were focused on. And other classes were like they had med high schools where you would learn anatomy, biology, chemistry, all those things.
Yeah.
And then the way it works in France is you take this really big test and at the end of your senior year, and that test qualifies you for colleges. You pick your college, you go to that college for free. That's kind of how that works. It's like colleges see your score, they see your resume or whatever. They're like, yeah, we'll take you, and then you have to check their box, send it back, and you go to that college. Weird.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to do
Very
it.
stressful test. I couldn't imagine.
Not that the SAT is calming, but
Right, but like at least you can retake the SAT. You know,
Right,
like this
for
one,
sure.
it's like I do good now or I do good in a year. Like
Yeah.
you take it once a year, and yeah, stressful stuff. But I thought that was intriguing, and I think there's some good science behind those types of high schools. I think telling kids that they have to choose what they want to do when they're in 8th grade is very difficult.
Oh, yeah.
That's where I stand on that. I mean, looking back on me personally, I probably would have chose a decent path for myself. Probably would have chose something like law, like a law school, a business school for me to go to, which I isn't the worst choice.
Yeah.
It might have focused me and pushed me to go to college in that or something. I don't
But you
know.
could have gone to college in that and realized that you don't
That I
enjoy
hated it, and
Yeah,
that
that's-
it's all I've ever done. You know,
Right.
like I wouldn't know what else to do. And then even trying to go to medicine at that point. Like now I gotta take anatomy 101, I gotta take chem 101, bio 101, and like, God no, you know, like that's rough. You know, it's going from scratch. At least people who graduate our high school, which I guess a good name for our high school, like liberal high schools, just like a liberal college or is that what they're called? They're yeah, something like that, where they have to take like one of each like subject. So like even if you're a business major, you have to take an English class.
Right.
Liberal colleges or whatever. That's sort of what my style high school was, and a lot of them around here, excluding private ones.
When I lived in Phoenix, there was actually a high school being built when I left that was a culinary high school.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
yeah.
very strange because that was the first. We had like a new tech high school, which was
Yeah, we don't have new tech, but yeah.
yeah, it was all like group projects and
Mhm.
everyone got a computer and stuff. But besides that, that culinary high school is like the first specialized thing I've seen, and it seems kind of weird. I guess like math classes could be tutored more towards, or not tutored, but you know what I mean. Aimed more towards culinary stuff, and I don't know. Are they writing essays based on food or something? Like I don't quite know how some of those
Right.
classes would incorporate with culinary, but it's interesting that if you want to go into food, there's a high school where you can specialize in that before you go to college.
And the idea is like, why are you wasting your time not doing that? Like, if you know you
Right.
want to do culinary, like, why are you wasting your
Start
time
as soon
doing
as possible.
doing chemistry, biology, like as productive and as important, in my opinion, those things are. You can't be everywhere at once, and I think that's what the liberal high schools are trying to get at. Is they're trying to get your fingers in every subject or whatever. But
Sure.
like
And I kind of feel like when they do that, some of like if that culinary high school had biology, anatomy, and you had to
Right.
take all of that stuff, then you'd be so focused on trying to get a good grade in biology that you wouldn't be able to memorize all of your conversions for cooking.
yeah,
And if you can focus more on cooking. But on the
Yeah.
same note, I could see somebody going through that whole culinary high school and getting a job in food service afterwards or whatever, and then not enjoying
Not
it,
liking
and then
it,
they
yeah.
don't have a full basis
yeah,
for
yeah.
everything.
It's a lot of risk and reward. Like,
Yeah.
like I have friends that I know, and then I don't know how long your sister wants to be a baker or whatever. I don't know how long she's wanted to do that, but a good an acquaintance of mine a really, really great guy, Ryan Perky. He, for as long as I can remember, has wanted to be a chef. He works up at a golf course now, cooking food, loves his job, um, but he took the same course that your sister did at Impact,
Okay.
which is like an extended high school for our system.
It's a vocational school.
Yeah, vocational. And he's going to be a chef now, you know. So there's people like that it's like, man, if they could have been honing their skills even better, like imagine where they could be now. Like, but instead they were taking calculus, they were taking pre-calc just because they have to, you know. And those are classes that I personally loved, but it's classes that Ryan could have been studying recipes or trying out new methods or something like that in like a private study or something, you know. So
you use the word honing, which kind of makes me think of like knife honing, which I think is a good metaphor, because if you are constantly sharpening your knife, then you'll be able to constantly make good food.
Yeah.
But if you're using your knife until it's dull, then the last 50 meals you cook with that knife are going to have oddly cut ingredients, and it's not going to be as professional. And I think in your life, if anything's worth doing, you should do it as professionally and make sure your knife is sharp to do it.
Absolutely, yeah. There's that one guy. I can't remember his name. He coined the idea that you have to be good at something. You have to do
10,000
hours.
Yeah,
or whatever.
I know who you're talking about. I can't think of his name either.
But I think the idea behind these high schools is like it's an extra step towards your 10,000. You know, like in a normal high school you'll spend 300-400. It's like now you've got 1,000.
Right.
Because of a high school that knows what you want to do and is specializing in what you want to do and is teaching you better in what you want to do. You know, because teachers that are teaching there are probably, I guess this is anecdotal and might not be true, but it would make more sense to me that those teachers in those high schools enjoy what they do more than teachers in just a normal high school, because it's what they do, you know. Like you're gonna have to have a good culinary background to get hired. You're gonna have to have some credentials, you know. Where have you worked? Have you been a chef? Was that restaurant reputable? Stuff like that, and that at like a normal high school just isn't applicable in the same way.
And if the vocational thing isn't offered, or there's nothing like that, then all you might have is like home ec, which is maybe 100 hours, and half of that's sewing. So
we had a foods class, but like it goes so slow, and it's stuff that you already know how to make, like cookies, mashed potatoes. Like, why are we making cookies and mashed potatoes? We're 18-year-old kids. Like, let's do something worth our time or something. But
for sure.
But at the same time, there are kids that don't know how to make that, and it's a useful class, you know. So, I guess speaking from coming in a restaurant for 4 years, it's a little different for me. But yeah, those are the only differences I'd make in high school. It's pretty challenging. But going back, I guess a little bit to the arts thing that we were talking about in middle school, I think that if you were to increase the arts, because I did speech and debate sophomore, junior, and senior year, if you were to go back and in middle school implement a small speech and debate team, even within itself, and this has shown effects across the country. I know kids across the country that do speech, and most of them have a middle school team. Some don't. But you can tell the difference between the ones that do and the ones that don't. It's like
you're so much more prepared
and so much more passion for it, because passion is built over time. It's not all at once, for sure. I think that there are big jumps in it. Like in speech, it's like, okay, like I want to do this first competition, you know, state competition. It's like you become more passionate, like the better you're doing. So if we were to open up a middle school team or like emphasize these arts a little bit better, it would improve our arts, which would improve our school. Like the sports have enough emphasis on them, for sure. And I think a lot of kids do sports. A lot of kids are great at sports. A lot of kids should do sports. Um, I've considered whether or not we should take sports out of the high school. They do that in France as well. Sports are all locally done. So like,
Which I think is smart.
I think it's pretty smart too, because I think a lot of times sports does distract from the education, but I'm not entirely sure how I feel on that too.
Yeah.
There's an argument for the team building, but it's like, okay, I never did high school. Well, I did cross. I did individual sports. I did cross and I did track. But it's like I feel like I'm a perfectly fine teammate, you know, like
Yeah.
I'm perfectly fine. I did sports that were all completely individually based, right? Like
Yeah, I really did too.
I don't think I needed football to teach me how to be nice to a guy, right? Like football and ethics are two completely different. But yeah, that's how I feel about the education system in 40 minutes or less.
Yeah, we went on a few tangents though.
Yeah, that's good.
But yeah, I completely agree with what you were saying about passion building over time and stuff. I joined intramural cross country in 6th grade because that's all they offered.
Yeah. Seventh grade for me, but yeah.
Okay. And so I started doing that and really enjoyed it, and then through 7th and 8th grade, really enjoyed it. And you know, just seeing your progress keep getting better really motivates you to keep going and keep pushing through everything.
For sure.
And then I got to my freshman year, and we were the cross country team did summer practices all through the summer, and the coach at that time was very supportive of like cliques within the group, and was also very okay with hazing. And he's since got fired, but it kind of ruined it. I think that like I said earlier, having teachers on your side, and also having coaches on your side, having people in your corner can help a lot as you're going through the educational system. I actually stopped doing cross country my freshman year because I wasn't really fitting in with some of the other guys. A lot of the upperclassmen didn't accept the freshmen, and then they had a hazing ritual where the freshmen would have to do the entire practice with a sports bra on, and the coach was totally fine with it, and it was just kind of humiliating. And I mean, if it wasn't for the other things, that'd be fine to get through. But it's also like you're that kid wearing the sports bra that no one else wants to hang out with, and then everyone's like, it just creates a bad environment. And I think team building is a lot more important than having people who are willing to get you to where you need to be, whether that's teachers or coaches or the high school itself, just getting you to the point that you want to end up in.
Yeah, definitely. And our cross-country team does this thing that I don't know if they're going to do anymore. Our coaches just switched last year, and they did it their first, or did they do it their first year? Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did. It's a 24-hour run. We go to the track. It's not as bad as it sounds. We go to the track, and basically one person on our team is running a mile for 24 hours straight. And for every
switch off.
For every mile that we run, we have people pledge like 10 cents for every mile they run. We run 500 miles, 10 cents for every mile. And like stuff like that. That's really cool, really fun. That was like team building, and like everybody looks forward to the 24-hour run because it's
really
awesome. Like a blast. Yeah, people bring tents, people bring food. Like, and there's like always some guys that are like trying to like up what happened last year, like in terms of technology. So like we had air conditioner, we had like PS4, we had like all these things that were totally unnecessary, it's a really good team bonding experience, and that's something that I think more teams should have. We always talked about, we never did it, and I dropped out of cross my sophomore year, and I guarantee if I would have kept doing it, we would have done it. But taking a cross-country camping trip to like a state park.
Oh, that's cool.
And then doing runs every day, for like a week. We all live together for a week. We do runs together for a week up in hard trails. Really, really difficult. But like I think like that stuff would have been like accelerated like our passion. Like I said, passion comes with experience.
It makes you grow together.
Mm-hmm. And as a team, yeah. The problem that like you kind of mentioned was that like, so we do all this. We do this team building. We do all that. What happens when new people come in?
Right.
You know, now like we've done all this together. We ran 600 miles this summer. You've done maybe 2 if you're telling the truth, and you want to be a part of us.
Yeah.
It does create this type of animosity, and it's like put in the work first, and then we'll accept you. But until then, don't expect to be accepted. Like I can
makes it harder to be willing to put in the work in the first place.
But like I understand both sides of it too. It's like. It's hard to tell me that like someone who has no idea what I've experienced is allowed to experience the same thing as me. Like, like it's hard. Is it right? As long as you're not killing the other people, yeah, I think it's fine. Like we never did hazing or anything like that. We definitely did dumb things, but that was across all grades. We would do dumb things. And also like. Whenever freshmen would come up, like we needed them first of all, so it was like treat them like gods. But also they were good. They were genuinely like some of the best on the team sometimes. So it's like you do you, buddy.
Right.
Like
and once I got into show choir, it was always more like the freshmen are the people who are going to be seniors, so you want them to be. So yeah, you want those people to be the best they can and get better.
Yeah, definitely.
You should build them up so that the whole team can be better instead of tearing them down.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, back to like I said, the click thing. It makes sense for that to happen, I guess. When you do things that like team build, you do so much team building, and you do feel like a family, and then other people like try to come in. There's kind of like that hesitation period. Certainly, it's possible to let them in, but to do it instantly, 1, I don't think is good, and 2, I think sometimes creates a lot of animosity
for sure
within the team. But that's how it goes. Figuring that out in high school is a big part of high school. So I don't think the academics are ever terribly difficult, honestly. I think how you navigate high school determines how hard it is.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
I feel like overall school is a lot harder than it has to.
All right.
So hopefully that cut wasn't too weird. One of the things done. But yeah, so school is a lot harder than it has to be. I feel like once you get into the real world, socializing isn't as hard. Everyone tends to be more cool. Obviously, there's still the jocks and the bullies and the people who think they're better than everyone and all that. But at the end of the day, I think more people are just chill. You're all experiencing life. You're going through things, and at work, you're all just putting in your hours and going home. And so I think all of the trying to fit in and stuff is kind of thrown out the window once you get into the real world. So in that aspect, I think school doesn't really prepare you for that because it's such intensified stakes.
Yeah, agreed. And that's why like there's a lot more deep layers to it, but I think it depends on the type of person you are, what you've experienced, and how, like Dr. Peterson says, how strong you are, you know, and relativity to safe, and how you've been raised. So, some people come out of high school soldiers ready to fight the world, and some people come out as marshmallows ready to get burnt.
For sure. That's a good way to put it.
And I think the goal of the education system is to, amongst other things, make you strong. And to go back to the original question, I think you asked something like, do I think it's succeeding or not? And I think slowly it is drifting away from that. I think we're going more towards the safe side.
Yeah.
Which for a lot of people in lower level education, I think makes sense that they do that. But I think it's bad overall, for a lot of reasons. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. All you can do is ride it out, try try to spread what you believe and hope it catches fire.
Especially with a lot of the gender debates that are going on, and like homosexuality and different things like that really cause a lot of extra stress anyway. I mean, more people cutting is never a good thing, obviously. So I think having a safe space to an extent is good, but when the real world isn't always like that, it makes it a little difficult.
Right. Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
So I agree. It'll be definitely interesting to see how it evolves over time, and if it continues down this path of being safer versus preparing you to be stronger. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how school is when we have kids and they start going through all that. And it's already way different than it was for our parents, I'm sure.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, they can't hit you with the paddle anymore, so.
Right, for sure. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, but yeah, I appreciate it.
Maybe we can go back to that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Actually, funny little thing, back in 7th grade, on the radio, there was a girl that did get paddled in Texas by a male teacher, and she couldn't walk for like 3 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there was a big controversy there. That was years ago, but...
Technically, it is legal in Indiana to paddle kids still.
I think you have to have like a consent form or something.
Depending on the circumstances, I don't think you even need parental consent.
That's interesting.
But because there's such a strong possibility of getting sued and the parent arguing, or you know, if the kid says you hit him a little too hard or did something other than paddling them, like there's so many other factors in there that no one does it anymore.
Yeah.
But there is still a legal loophole I was reading about, that corporal punishment is still perfectly legal in Indiana.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was gonna be a sub at DeKalb, and they went through all the laws and stuff, and basically said, don't paddle kids, but you can. So that's a little aside there.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for being here.
No problem. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
It was interesting conversation.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. Looking forward to maybe another one sometime or something.
Yeah, for sure. We didn't get to too many topics.
No.
But we did go very in depth on that last one, and I thought it was really, really interesting. So
agreed.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And we'll see you guys later.
Absolutely.